Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Rendezvous with Anza Saqib on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is an invitation-only membership exclusively for chief investment officers, CIOs, technology officers, so all your CTOs, CFOs, CMOs, CEOs, CxOs, country heads, the world's most largest influential companies that are there. They're brought together by top journal editors, global analysts, and key thought leaders with the mission to identify some challenges in technology and new opportunities for innovation that will unlock value for their organizations. The forum is getting global exposure, especially in digital transformation and information around the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy from around the world. And today as well, we've got a very special lady with us, someone of Yugoslavian descent, but is currently based in the Middle East, in UAE in particular. She's very talented. She has done some tremendous amount of work. Please welcome Dr. Annie. She's the co-founder and CEO at Pixelhunters. Dr. Annie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Dr. Annie, let's cut to the chase. So, before we go on and talk about your professional life, let's talk a little about your personal life. So, where did your journey begin? Where did you go to school? What courses did you study? How did you end up where you are at right now, as the co-founder and CEO of a company like Pixelhunters?
Okay, I'm Bulgarian, not Yugoslavian.
Okay,
So
right.
I was born in Bulgaria, and I graduated a French school, and as a consequence, I graduated with a perfectly speaking language due to great teachers I had in the school there. And afterwards, by advice of my parents, I became engineer in electronics and telecommunications. This is where I met my husband, with whom we actually manage the business
You're the
together.
co-founder of the company, right?
Yes, the other co-founder is actually my husband. We both graduated as telecom engineers, although since the first year since we were in the university, my husband was very attracted by the fresh 3ds Studio Max. This is a software for producing 3D and animation. So when he started dealing with 3D and animations, actually you couldn't study this one because this was the first, for example, manual on 3ds Max that was ever published. So there was no such industry that time. So this is 20 something years ago. So this is where the journey of my husband began 23 4 years ago with the animation industry. Me, I'm quantum physicist as a PhD. So I specialize in lasers, applications, a lot of research and development in the field of laser applications and new technologies. When we came to Dubai, we came because my husband actually joined another company, competitor of ours. And 1 year, yeah, this company doesn't exist anymore, but we do exist. So yeah, this happens in business. So 1 year later, we decided and we founded Pixelhunters. So Pixelhunters brand is over 12 years old. We started as an animation company, but later on we started with game development and all the new technologies that became popular during the years, because technology is technology, even our phones, in a 3 years time, our phones are completely different. So technology is something that changes constantly. So we need to follow up this one. And actually what we are very, very famous is that we contribute to the knowledge-based economy by creating a lot of knowledge-based applications. So helping people to learn faster and better. And we use technology actually to make the learning more immersive, because with new generations and with so much informational overflow around us, we need more attractive ways to perceive information and mainly to notice the information, so only reading is not longer interesting for the young generation, unfortunately. So there is a need of more immersion in the learning, in the presentation of materials, in the marketing, even in everything. Everyone is looking for a little bit more excitement.
Absolutely. And you're so right, Dr. Annie, because I've seen some of your projects. And, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are watching, Dr. Annie and her husband have done more than 1,000 successful projects. So, hats off to them. And but Dr. Annie, coming back to how you are harnessing new technologies and visual, graphics and immersive technologies for enhancing communication, education, and entertainment. So let's talk about each one of them. So first of all, post-pandemic, one has realized the importance of such technologies, especially with things like homeschooling or since students starting from elementary school to university level or even postgraduate level are not going to physical school, right? So where can such technologies benefit, and could you give us example of some projects that you've executed successfully?
Being based in the UAE, the new technologies are actually coming here probably faster than anywhere else in the world. So even before the pandemic, we were very strong in creating immersive applications and platforms, educational platforms based on the new technologies such as AR and VR. Right now, the VR, because this is a single users in most of the time, so one device is on one head. So right now, the VR headsets, because they are widely available on the market, so VR can be used at home very, very easily. This is not more difficult than using a cell phone. So the VR and applications and AR, especially when it's involving our own phones, this is very much in use nowadays in education, because mainly it gives a more immersive education. What is happening with the global education in general and with the new generation in general is that there is a need of a little bit more different kind of education, especially when the young generation is so much tech savvy. So, and
Absolutely.
especially when the young generation are so much game oriented,
Yeah.
you can notice that if you eventually talk to your kids, it understands much better if you talk under a game context, because they understand points, they understand rewards, they understand motivation through games. So why not using games as a motivational tool to empower education? So game-based education and gamification in education is something that is not a new concept, but because of the COVID probably gets a little bit more, focus, because it brings
Yes.
better results from the education itself as a result mainly.
Absolutely. You're so right, Dr. Annie, and we've not seen this not just in education, but even when we talk about the corporate sector in particular. I know a lot of companies now, even within Pakistan, are realizing the need for gamification, especially for their employees, even in terms of training, in terms of development, um, even in terms of creating that customer experience. So how have you executed projects within the corporate sector? Any success stories that you'd like to share with us?
We have quite a lot of success stories with a lot of corporates, very large corporate here on the market. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to share names like this.
Okay, but maybe
But
any
yeah,
projects.
but we are mainly known into the corporate gamification, actually, not that much into youth, not that much into children education, but we are very much known into youth empowerment. I mean, teenagers and more, and into corporate sector gamification. So from many years, we create specific customer, specific game-based and gamification solutions for training for different companies, and they were tailor-made. So we design them particularly for them, for their goal, their needs, and etc. What came up with all of that is that everyone needs such solutions because everyone needs to empower their team. Everyone needs a little bit more fun into the learning. And that's why we said, okay, it's very costly every time to develop an application specifically for someone. Also, it's time consuming and etc. So it's kind of a slow process. So we decided, why don't we create an accelerator? So a platform in which we can plug directly the client content and they can use it on the go. So instead of developing solution that will cost a lot of money and will take a lot of time, let's provide you a solution within a day or two. So we created a platform which is called multiplayer team training. So which is based on multiplayer games. Majority of the games can be played in a single mode too, but the advantage of a multiplayer gaming, especially nowadays, is that it saves time, it saves a lot of efforts to the training managers, and it brings much better results, because one of the main problems of the distance learning education is the lack of self-motivation. The people don't find enough courage and things and how to say will to study every day. At the same time, every employee in every company needs to pass a certain material, need to process certain material, need to prove that they have learned a certain material, and all this is kind of a long process. When you plug a training material into a game and you put the people play together, with our platform, we have proven that in just 1 hour, over 70 questions, because our platform is based in games in which we can plug all type of quiz material, plus videos, plus text and other information. But with our platform, we have proven that in just 1 hour, the average user can easily remember over 70 plus questions. And this is very, very, very easy. So we created a tool with which you can practice a lot of material on the go, and you can repeat it without being boring. All in a competitive mode. We also have games that are collaborative based. So just in 1 hour play, you can easily remember a material of over 70 questions. We have tested everything that existed on the market. I can't. I have one PhD. I'm in a third year in a second one, and I cannot remember in any other way. I cannot remember such quantity of material in such short time.
Absolutely. And Dr. Annie, it's very interesting, but just for the sake of knowledge for our audience, gamification actually revolves around putting game-like principles like the concept of rewards and punishments, or maybe, like lifelines and motivation and team playing to game scenarios in the real world. And like Dr. Annie pointed out, it can be a very big success story in the corporate world in particular. And like, it makes learning fun. But Dr. Annie, here's the thing, when we talk about like in the corporate sector in particular, right, there is still a lot of companies that are maybe a little old school, right? And for them, giving employees information through maybe games as opposed to very heavy manuals like training manuals seems a bit far-fetched. So like, for example, how would you tackle this narrative in the corporate sector? Like, how do your conversations begin when you have to convince someone?
Well, at the first place, if somebody contacts us, that means they are already looking for something different. Why? Because they have seen that they are lacking interest of people. The people don't want easily to achieve their learning goals, or the learning goals are so behind the schedule, so they are looking for something to push forward the learning process. So if they have realized that their learning process needs an improvement, so they are already half customer, if I can say. Why? Because everyone has a goal. Every corporate has a goal. And this goal needs to be achieved one way or another. If the traditional method, I don't say that the gamification is the solution for all needs, because if the company prefers the old-fashioned education and everything works perfect and the goals are achieved, well, we can keep forward this way. But in most cases, it happened that we are so much overloaded from information. Because we are already overloaded with information, our attention span as humans has decreased tremendously. Our attention span is less than a goldfish nowadays. So a goldfish
Yes,
is
absolutely.
literally clever than us nowadays. So we need different tools to address all these challenges. So why games? I can tell you most people think that games are actually for children, but the average age of a nowadays player is 40 plus.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting fact. And Dr. Ani, so most of the time games are perceived like even within the workplace, right? We see a lot of inclusive environments. So when you talk about, especially for tech companies or startups, we see that there's always a breakout room or a games room. So when they're working and then, usually games are perceived as, activities that you do during your break, but not actually on work or on task. Um, and would you like to share your opinion on this?
Yeah. So why do people play games? The main reason is because they are fun. And there
Yes.
is something that a few people actually know. What is the difference between play and between a game? By definition, play means that I'm having some fun, but it doesn't need to have a goal or something. I'm just having fun. I play with this pen. I'm just playing with this pen. There is no goal here. I'm just enjoying myself doing some activity. Until the definition of a game is that we have a goal, we have the rules, and the most important thing is that we follow those rules absolutely voluntarily. So nobody
Right.
pushes, but we follow rules. So in an aspect of achieving corporate goals, learning goals, or whatever goals, tell me what can be more powerful as a tool that push you to follow rules voluntarily? Because as human individuals, we don't like to follow rules, right? We always try if there's a rule, but if we can avoid the rules and etc., this is a natural human reaction. But through the
Absolutely.
games, because you enjoy the process, you're actually following the rules on your own will. And this is more powerful because you don't feel like pushed doing this one.
Absolutely.
So
And
in
you as a leader can modify their behaviors as well in a very subtle way.
yeah, there is actually, if many people what mistake they make is that when they put some points, leaderboards and etc. into their corporate thing, they think, I have gamification, it works. And then they see that actually it doesn't work. Why? Because in order to work, there's a lot of behavior psychology behind games, because not everyone is playing the same game, right? So people are different, the people like different things. So you cannot design something, put some points and things and say, oh, okay, I have gamification, it will work. No, if you don't know your employees, if you don't know your corporate goals, and if you don't know how the brain of your employee click, it will be very difficult to design a successful gamification. So it's very important to understand the user behavior before we start implementing any game-based or gamification-based training.
All right.
Usually in our
Absolutely.
country here, and actually in everywhere, why the games are also very powerful, because whatever you do, the games give an immediate feedback of how you perform.
Absolutely. Right.
So in our corporate field, many people feel demotivated because they work, and nobody notice what they do. Nobody give them a feedback.
Acknowledges.
Did they did well? Didn't they do well? And etc. So feedback and how well you perform a task is actually very important from a motivational perspective to any employee. So the games are just a nice tool where you can do this in a more, how to say, automated way, if I can say, and it can work very effectively. Because in big
Absolutely.
structures, you don't have time to give a feedback to everyone individually. But through a game, you can successfully do this.
Right. You're so right, Dr. Annie. And when we're talking about, knowing your, employees or knowing the people that you're designing the games for, one of the things that comes to mind is a buzzword these days, and everyone's talking about it, the experience. So the employee experience, the UI UX of any game design, that's also a lot of thought and mind is put into it. A lot of R&D happens. There's a lot of alpha and beta testing. Earlier these things did not even exist. So if there was a visual artist, a visual animator, they would just design a 2D or 3D game, and nobody really cared about another field that's emerged, about the experiences, right? How important do you think it is to create that right kind of experience to make gamification successful?
Actually, the most important behind the gamification is the logic behind, understanding your employees and what makes them click. This is the most important. The user experience is designed according knowing your users and when you want to achieve your goal. Why the user experience is important? Because before, in the early era of the video games, because we are the first indie game developer in the country.
Okay, wow.
So when there were 3 games in the App Store, when there was 3 games overall, whatever you push there, because it was in demand, something more fun, something more interesting. So all the games that were early published overperformed because there was a hunger for this kind of experiences. Right
Absolutely.
now, we have millions of games and we have thousands of games published every single day,
Right.
and then it becomes in every market when you have over competition, who can survive? The one that provides a better experience, the one that provides better quality, the one that is looking different, the one that has more options and things inside. So we need to make the difference in comparison with the whole pool of existing stuff that exists. So that's why it's very important and it's so difficult nowadays to create good user experiences.
To create the good user experience. So speaking of the user experience in technology, we know that fine, there are some games that are available like in 2D or 3D technology, conventional gaming, which has now become your games that are available on the App Store and so on and so forth. But in order to make this experience more immersive, people have started using technology like mixed reality, AR, VR. I know you have been working on this as well. So can we add this element in gamification, especially for the corporate sector?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. For example, the new technologies are like VR and AR. What is the difference between is that when you have a VR technology, it means that we're completely in a virtual world inside virtual reality glasses. When we have an AR application, it's called augmented reality. We
Yes.
are actually in the real environment, and through a phone or glasses, some elements from the real world are actually kind of augmented, so they create a better experience. But we are still in the real world. With the
Mm-hmm.
VR, we are completely in the virtual world, and the mixed reality are something combination between both. The virtual reality in the corporate sector is very important, especially if you have to realize trainings that contain a big perception of risk. Our company, we have created many hazard perception trainings. If you go even to take a driving license in the UAE, in Dubai, you're gonna pass by a hazard perception done by us. So we are
Okay, wow.
expert in hazard perception solutions and hazard perception trainings. when you have a high perception of hazard, you cannot just, okay, let's film it, and give it to people to see, because making this training and this showing these hazards are related with creating a hazard yourself. So in these situations, it is much more safe for the creation of the training is to do it in a 3D way or a CGI way, rather than
with a simulation rather than actually recreating, an
yes,
accident or something and so forth.
yes. And what is important with the VR is because it cheats the brain. In the brain think you are in a real thing, because everything is naturally 360 around you. So when you see this one around you, you think it's real. And if you have a training that is related with a high perception of risk, you can deliver how important it is to pay attention, for example, on the steps of doing something in a VR, because even if you do the things wrong, you're still in safe. For example, we have created a VR experience of how to fix 11 kilovolts power line, there.
Okay, wow.
And this is on a 11 meters height, so you can you have to be very careful, and you have to know all the proper steps when you work with such heights and with such high power activities.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
doing this in VR is way more safe than doing it in any other way. In addition, it saves money, it saves efforts to the companies, and it can be done right now. The glasses are available everywhere on the shelf on any shop. So it's an easy, portable simulator that you can give to your people at a very affordable cost. This is the advantage of the technologies.
Absolutely. And Dr. Annie, as I see it, these things are not costs anymore. They're more like an investment. So rather than actually creating that room or getting a warehouse and putting in, actual, let's say, furniture or items, you can do all of this in VR. And this can be an investment into your business because it's so easy to make customizations as well, right? So if I tell you that, okay, so now today we don't want to work with an 11 kilowatt or bulb, but maybe with 10 or 8 kVs, then we can modify that as well. And so that is definitely an investment in the future. But speaking about investing into the future, have you considered, or I know you have worked in Pakistan as well, or maybe even had some exposure with Pakistani markets, and what is it that you've noticed about the potential of business in Pakistan in the future?
I've been 3 times to Karachi.
Okay, lovely.
So I love the city and the hospitality. So what I've noticed is that this is one of a kind hospitality over there. I can say I met incredible people in Pakistan, and everybody was so nice. And I loved all my visits into Pakistan. What I really enjoyed, I was there as a speaker to different events and conferences in the field of technology and women empowerment. So what I really see like a big potential is more women empowerment into Pakistan. And I saw in Pakistan there is a huge potential into a lot of women who are doing different handcrafts. They can bring this one to the world, but they don't have, for example, necessarily enough knowledge how to market themselves, because nowadays what's the marketing? It's all based on the digital tools and technology. It's not the old way of marketing. So nowadays it's much more difficult to give yourself exposure only into the digital world. So I really enjoyed all the events that I visited in Pakistan, and I see a lot of potential in Pakistan in general, because this is a very big country. When you have people, there is a lot to happen. A lot can happen.
Absolutely, and this is what we at CxO Global Forum have been focusing on now, even business outreaches and connecting people globally, because it's very interesting. But now, with how fast technology is progressing, no country, no city is so far away. We might be sitting in completely different cities of the world, but it's so easy to connect, collaborate, and engage with each other with the right kind of platform that's available. So, Dr. Annie, unfortunately, we've come towards the end of this interview. However, I would like to ask you two things in particular. What would be your message uh, for the people that are watching today, especially for all the C-levels that are watching today?
Well, one of the messages that games and gamification are something not just for fun, but actually one of the most powerful tools to engage, motivate, and empower employees, and mostly to achieve goals. So this
Yeah,
is one thing.
absolutely.
And another thing is that we need to learn every day, because all the things that happen around us require us to learn every day, and this is a constant process. So it's
Absolutely.
we just need to
Absolutely.
improve ourselves daily.
Absolutely. Dr. Annie, thank you so much for joining us. And I know you observed a few things about CxO Global Forum, and thank you. We always appreciate your contribution to the knowledge economy. And ladies and gentlemen, those who want to find out more about the kind of work that Dr. Annie and Pixelhunters are doing, we'll share a link to their website with you. And you can obviously get in touch with them through the CxO Global Forum network. That's www.cxoforum.global. Till then, here's me signing off. And Dr. Annie, thank you once again for joining us. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for inviting me, and good luck with all initiatives.
Thank you. And we look forward to doing more work with you and learning more. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.